Okay. I hope you have some topics or whatever because
Absolutely. I came prepared. I love the background giraffe and what's that? Tiger, I think, in the
yeah,
background.
this was in my office at the clinic, all
Yep.
this African safari stuff, and I
Wow.
just have not had the opportunity to put a lot of that stuff up yet.
Pick your own, yeah. Beautiful. Oh, well, let's get started. Thank you so much, obviously, for being on. I really highly appreciate it, especially some of your caliber now that you spent. How many years have you been with Robert in total since you're leaving?
Almost 7, or
Almost
was it
7.
almost 8? Yeah, I
Wow.
it was either almost 7 or almost 8.
Yeah. And what a beautiful time, I imagine.
Oh, you know what? It's indescribable the experiences that you receive there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was life changing.
Yeah.
Really was. Yeah.
Just if this, you wouldn't mind if this ever went to public, would you? This recording?
No, not at all. In
No.
fact, I was going to see if once we're done, if you could share it and then I could share it as well.
Yeah, I would love to. Absolutely. Yeah, it'd be awesome. On that note, I would love to know just one of your greatest. I'm sure they're all unique and they're all beautiful in their own right at every moment. Was there one like takeaway or maybe top three takeaways for the moments you saw? Maybe someone's healing or I mean with Robert, was there just something that absolutely touched you? Was the most kind of memorable, I guess, or most profound experience you had at the office?
I mean, there are when you're talking to a group of people and it depends on your audience, you know, when you're speaking, the stories just naturally flow.
Mm,
But I'm going to be honest with you, there are so many stories that stand out that are beautiful that people may not even have attained their healing yet, but the change that's
yeah.
come for them spiritually, emotionally, um, the different experiences that they go through. That is just something that, I mean, it is such an honor and such a privilege that I get to be a part of that I
Yeah.
get to
100%.
share in that with others. This
100%.
isn't something that is just a decision that somebody falls into. You make this because of reasons, whether those are
Yeah.
spiritual, they're emotional, whether they're physical, or whether they're even at the time forced upon you because of where you happen to find yourself.
Mm,
you know I'm a big believer that sometimes, um no, I'll say it, a fall can lead to amazing things.
yeah. 100%. Turning the pain into power, or yeah, realizing how. I just watched a recent TED talk, and a man that had two near-death experiences, and spirit left the body. Naturally, we're back to God consciousness, whatever that means for the individual, and to come back and again have these profound experiences and realize that what if it were that our greatest pains were our greatest teachers, our greatest, you know, downfalls, and they are. We can imagine a Hollywood movie; it would just be absolutely boring if there was no conflict and there was no, heroic stories. So
Exactly.
it would never sell. So,
Yeah.
thank you for that. Beautiful. I imagine again they were all, I guess, unique in their own way, and just yeah, again the experience was amazing. Was there a personal reason for leaving, or was it just time to move on to do your own thing? Was it just something that naturally came to light?
This was, I'm sure, I never set out to be the next Robert, um,
Of course.
or even, when I actually went to the clinic and Robert offered me the job. About 3 days into it, they pulled me aside and they're like, "What's this you keep talking about being here for a year?" I moved to Florida with the intention of being here for 1 year.
Mm,
And they were like, we need a commitment from you. And I actually um, told them I need to go home and talk with my family and my children. And that was, I started in November. I went back in December to Indiana to talk to my family about this. And my kids were like, "Mom, this has been your dream. This has been, your passion. You need to do this."
yeah.
And that began the journey. I never moved to Florida with the intention of it being, but I'll tell you one thing. Now that we're here,
That's
I love it. It's
yeah.
amazing. It's amazing.
Are you near Miami? I'm well equipped with basic geography of America, but not super specific.
So I am up. Do you know where Tampa is?
Roughly, roughly.
Okay. I'm south of Tampa, about half hour, 45 minutes.
Okay. In comparison to Miami?
Probably about 3.5 to 4 hours north of Miami.
Okay. Yep. Cool. Awesome. So again, just we're coming back to where you are now. Was the reason personal for you? Was it just a case of it was time to move on, leaving the clinic?
There were lots of reasons. When you do this, when you step into being a practitioner or healer, some people call them, that pretty much takes over your life.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about you. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that I've woke up in the middle of the night and I'm like, okay, I need to remember this for this protocol. I didn't do that. You know,
Yeah.
oh, word, this topic comes to mind and you're like, this can't leave. I've got to research it now. So I don't know how many times I'm doing 2 a.m., 3 a.m.
You and
And
I
then
both.
we have an hour and a half to 2 hour drive to work to and from. So a total of
Wow.
4 hours every day on the road. That takes a toll. And then trying to achieve your own healing when everything is focused on others. And I don't mean that in a self-righteous way. It's just when you have hundreds of clients, you're constantly thinking about that. And to be honest with you, this has been a ride. This has been an amazing experience the last 7, 8 years. But I have not really taken the time to focus on healing me. And
Wow.
that played a huge part in it as well.
Absolutely.
Kind of has an untold story that's not out there yet. It will be one day, but it's not yet. And not that, me not being a diabetic again is going to be the end and that's when the story is going to be released. But I'm still living my story right now.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, I mean, when you sometimes can't answer your own questions, you question yourself as a healer, but it's all a journey. It's all, you learn. And I will tell you one thing. I was reading a little bit about you and your journey at death's door on a couple of occasions and different things. And I've been there too. And, when that happens, it wakes you up. It wakes you up.
Yeah, I always say I was forced into it. You had to learn pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. And I resonate completely too. Again, 3 a.m. wake up. Oh, shit, what was that thing? Yeah, got to get so-and-so. Yeah, Jemima's going to do this. Mary's going to do that. And you just constantly boom, boom, boom. And slowly over time, I feel like very early on with that death's doorstep encounter, as much as I love helping, as you know, you can only help relative to how well you are within yourself. And for me coming back from that spot, I had to learn quite quickly how to set up borders and boundaries mentally so I could go to sleep, take that hat off, take the heart off, and just disconnect my kind of energy field, I guess, and the attachments that we naturally, I think, make. And I think, not to sound sexist, I think women just have that deeper empathic connection to humans in terms of their unconditional love and the way they cultivate love and just give. It's incredible. So I resonate completely. And beautiful that you've finally gone into this new chapter, I guess, of your life. So which would lead me to my next question. What is the new thing for you now? I obviously saw that the new Healthy Perspective, and is that your business and you're building that up?
Yes. Just been overwhelmed. My one question, or I should say my one prayer when I left the clinic, my biggest concern wasn't even for me. It was for my clients. Because you establish a rapport. This is about people coming to you and they're feeling betrayed by their body. They're feeling betrayed by the medical community, sometimes even family. And I remember one time I walked into the front of the clinic and there was this gentleman there. and he was talking with one of the people at the front of the desk, and he was irate. And they were trying to talk to him. They were trying to settle him down. And then I walked up to him and I just introduced myself. And then for the next 5 minutes, I shut up because most people are used to not being heard.
Yeah.
And he said the exact same things that he had said to the person behind the counter. But one thing was different. I was listening. And I'm not saying that the clinic people weren't. It's just that when you listen to somebody, it makes them, it's like they start out like this and then they start going like this. And they start drawing into you. And then they create a relationship. And
I can trust you.
Yeah. And that was the main thing that many of my clients, we had even went, and my whole thing was I wanted to go deeper with people than just the physical, because we are spiritual first, we're emotional second, and we're physical. This is just a shell.
It's like the end point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I wanted to go with people. And, you know, after I listened to this guy and he had vented for a couple of minutes, it was like all the air was let out and he was willing to listen at that point. And people just need to be heard. They really do.
I think combining, and we'll go into some obviously detoxification stuff and general healing. I think, and I'm gonna say again, I feel like a huge resonance between myself and yourself, and it's really great to obviously touch base now. And
well, I just appreciate you reaching out and wanting to do this. I love it. I love talking.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, same way. I mean, to hear from someone again of your caliber, someone who's obviously sat beside the likes of Robert and the whole clinic. But coming back to this, I feel again it's so enormously important to allow people to feel they have an emotional backpack, to identify it, so they can start releasing. Which, you know, if we come back to this, the body, you know, allows the parasympathetic to upregulate. It allows the sympathetic to die down. It allows more heart-brain coherence. It allows all the things on a metaphysical level to allow the physical to start the healing process. We cannot heal without that forgiveness, as you know, and I'm sure you are quite like avid in seeing that in people, as to allow them to be heard, validated, to be seen. And then like you said, that then develops the trust. They feel like they can trust again because they've probably been through, as you know, I'm sure the majority of people don't come to you first. They might be doing now. They would be 10 years allopathic, maybe 3 years other naturopathic, then this kooky, wazy, crazy thing. Then they might have found relief here. And then finally they find the clinic and get their answers. But by then it's like you're being tarnished. It's like a dog that's been kicked 30 times, you know?
Exactly. It's like you have to repair the relationships between them and others before they will embrace what you're willing to say. Not repair it. It's not about me repairing it, but it's almost like you have to soothe ruffled feathers and get them to trust again. Yeah. And not just in you or even the medical community, but sometimes in themselves. I had a lady one time and I asked her, do you believe that you deserve to heal? And she spent about 45 minutes explaining all the reasons why she did. Yeah. She kept running into her own walls and self-sabotaging herself because she didn't believe. I mean, we have to take back our identity, and we have to realize the worth of who we are, who God created us to be. I mean, the fact that he created us at all, you know.
The fact that we're here on this call right now.
and in this time and in this place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. I think the world's moving rapidly now. I think the internet, I mean, again, the very nature of this right now, to allow people to wake up to themselves, their individuality, but then the collective, of course. And that's, you know, the ironic nature of spirituality and oneness, but the individual self. Phil, thank you for that. I would love to move just quickly, just with your T1. It was T1, wasn't it?
What's that?
It was type 1, wasn't it, with you?
Yes.
Now,
yes.
Do you know if that's pituitary related, pancreatic related?
Mine. So if you start understanding that we are spiritual first, you start understanding that every experience you have, good or bad, sticks with you.
Yeah.
It flows through the body. It gets stuck within the lymphatic system. You know, a lot of times your lymphatic system gets backed up, and a lot of people think, well, okay, that's toxins, that's poisons, that's, you know, bacteria, that's dead skin cells, that's, you know, all, they lean to the physical, but they don't understand that traumatic experiences can actually get caught within that lymphatic system and slow everything down. So when they start on this detox process, the emotional starts coming out because you start breaking down those obstructions. And within that, if you've got a traumatic experience and it's causing guilt and shame and you know, all these negative emotions, and then all of a sudden they're flying off the handle or they're crying every day and they don't understand why, it's because you're breaking up some of that stuff, and you have to release those emotional things just as much as you need to release something that's toxic. Absolutely. And so when you look at my story and you look at my past, there was a lot of trauma in my early years. And within about a year to a year and a half after a lot of these happened, I developed this. In fact, I was young, and I just I looked like death warmed over is what I did, and I was thrown up, couldn't keep anything. This is going to be a funny story because I woke up. I don't remember a lot about that time because I was already not really with it, kind of as my sugars were so high.
Yeah.
But I remember waking up in the middle of the night and I was craving oranges. I was already leaning towards the fruit, but I didn't understand why. I was too young to understand why.
And you probably got told, don't touch sugar, get away from it as far as possible.
But by the time my mom realized this is something serious, I need to get her to the hospital or to the doctor. By the time I got to the doctors, I went into a semi-coma. And by the time they rushed me to the hospital, my sugars were over 1,073.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
For anyone in Australia, so we have a slightly different system. We're by a different, I think it's millimoles per deciliter. So our natural blood sugar is about 4.5, whereas yours, I think, about 80 to 100, I think, from memory.
Yeah.
So to give context, it's 10x.
Exactly. And then just before another experience where I was doing a lot of traveling, and my job took me, I was working in north of Chicago, and I called my mom. I was 18 at the time, 19. I called my mom, and I just told her, I worked during the week and then I traveled home on the weekends. And I told her, I said, I'm not feeling the best. I'm probably not going to make it home for the weekend. And my mom knew me well enough to sense in my voice that something wasn't right. And so she hung up the phone, called the manager of the hotel, told him my daughter's a diabetic. I need you to go check on her. So less than 10 minutes had lagged by the time he got to my room. And I was already passed out. And at that point, they called the paramedics. They gave me sugar because they knew I was diabetic, and it shot my sugar over 1,300.
Oh.
I was on a stomach pump, and I mean, literally just about. So my life, I've been in and out of hospitals with diabetic ketoacidosis. I mean, the 1 year alone was 9 times.
Oh, yeah.
I consider diabetic.
Yeah. And what about just a quick elevator pitch as to how long on insulin and maybe either metformin or any of the allopathic stuff to then finding Robert to then your reduction in insulin? Well, is there a 5-minute version or a 10-minute version? I mean, I'm sure the audience would love to hear it because there are plenty of type 1, type 2, but there's a type 3.5, 3,000. Just again, the natural unfolding process, I guess, from start to story to trial and tribulation.
So when I found this out, Robert, when I discovered Robert and this way, I had already had my own clinic up in Indiana, and I was already help people and work on that. And funny enough, it was Healthy Perspective. I carried it. I carried the name with me. But I was on about 75 units of a baseline, and then I would take about 15 to 25 units of coverage. So anywhere from 90 to 100 units a day.
Okay.
I am now down to roughly 25 units a day. And this last week, because of stress and everything else, it has gone down even more. I just
As in reducing stress, or
stress is interesting because it's either going to spike you sky high or drop you straight to the floor.
Yeah, 100%.
You sometimes can't gauge when or how that's going to happen.
And I think that's important to remember, is even if it is pancreatic, let's just say the site is pancreatic, and your stress, as you know, the cortisol blood sugars from adrenal glands is going to shoot you all over the shop.
The connection between the adrenal glands and the pancreas is huge.
Huge,
but the connection between the adrenal glands and the pituitary and the hypothalamus is even bigger. I mean, nothing happens down here, but what doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
And so one of my protocols that I've been having a major success with, not just myself, but others, is starting them out with going after this.
Pituitary or the hypothalamus? Like an endocrine gland formula or actual pituitary formula? Or
I do, I like to go back and forth. I put them on a hypothalamus glandular, and then I'll have them on that for a little while. And then I put them on Robert's pituitary formula. And then I combine that, depending on their emotional state, I'll combine that with either Bach flowers, or rhodiola and holy basil are absolutely stunning combinations. And you would not believe the number of people that are just, they start out like this, and then after a couple of months of being on that formula, they're like, and I can actually do this. Whereas before they're like, food.
Impossible.
How am I going to do it? I want this candy bar. And it calms them down emotionally enough that they can see past their addictions.
Their limitations, 100%. That's amazing. So down to about 20. So now that you said it's dropped even further, you've had now this stress, less stress in your life, which obviously is a huge variable. Is the end goal for you, is there a part of you that says, the 25 units down to whatever, or is there just, I surrender to whatever it is? Because you had about 30 years on insulin, or have had, give or take, haven't it?
43.
43. Yeah. Well, I only thought you were about 41. So there you go.
Well, we won't tell how old I was when I became one, but no. When you look at insulin, a lot of people just think insulin, and they don't make the connection that insulin is a hormone. And when you start giving the body a hormone, it becomes lazy. The pancreas starts shutting down. I have so many theories on type 1 diabetes. The whole honeymoon stage, how many people's sugars, for whatever traumatic or stressful reason, spiked. And the doctors are like, oh, you're a diabetic. We got to put you on insulin. The problem is, being on that insulin, would they have come, if they would have just let themselves go and start to come out of it, would they have come down on their own and worked themselves out of that situation? Or was going on the insulin what started that pancreas going, okay, well, you're doing this for me. And that honeymoon stage is a combination of your pancreas and the insulin working, but then your pancreas slowly just starts getting lazier and lazier.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I think the world is waking up to this idea that, as you know, there's a center point to everything, and then we have our two sides in this world. And when you're seeing low cholesterol, high cholesterol, low blood sugar high, anything out of homeostasis, there's a reason for that. It's not mystery. And gone are the days of mechanical thinking of, we just need to bump it back in and force it there, as opposed to discovering why. I find myself asking that question. What's the context? Why? It's just always questions, dig and dig and dig. And I think if people have that own tenacity. Just for the large majority of people, if they just really took the time to balance out and audit themselves, well, how am I emotionally? How am I physically? How am I mentally? What's my spiritual connection above and within?
Yeah.
A lot of problems probably could be solved just on their own. And, I'm always the one to say, and especially with my experience, that, medical technology is brilliant. What we've been able to achieve as humans, and the emergency life-saving situations, as you know, and pharmaceuticals, when in context, when they are absolutely brilliant, saving lives. I was saying to someone the other day, and I say it often, I said, when I'm in a car accident, I don't want a healer coming along and aligning my chakra points, I want a surgeon, and I want anesthetic, and I want
oil around your belly button.
Yeah. I'm chanting, no, I don't want that. I want a surgeon, I want fentanyl, and I want an anesthetic and a
Although
surgeon.
I say, if I'm having a heart attack, anybody with cayenne pepper is welcome to come and approach.
Is that right? There you
Absolutely.
go, sprinkler. Love it. Beautiful. Let's get into some detoxification stuff. Let's just start right off the bat. What do you think is the biggest mistake that people make when they hear the word detox? Because as you know, it's tarnish. Sorry, garnish is on a salad. Tarnish with this,
Are you
probably.
wanting?
Yeah. I'm water fasting. I've just got my tea. I'm actually in the middle of a water fast. So, as you know, it's tarnish. You have these 7-day skinny lemon juice detox and detox this, and it's a 3-day this, and people don't realize detoxification can last 2 years or more.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The whole process has to be just like going to the gym. You don't just look at weights and do one set and all of a sudden you're jacked. It is a long, slow process that is multi-dimensional over all of our types of bodies. What would you say is the biggest mistake people make when you've seen in your long career now, or some of the biggest mistakes?
One of the number one is biting off more than they can chew at the beginning. If you're a wrestler, let's weightlifter. You don't walk in to that gym lifting 300, 350 pounds, 250 pounds. You work your way up. And so many people have knocked themselves out of the game because they don't feel like they can accomplish everything that they set before themselves. They great fast. And they get into day 3 and day 4 and they're like, this is far harder than I thought. I can't do this. That kind of thing. The juicing, the all fruit, the still cooking for my husband and my kids and smelling that. And I've had clients where they cook the food, they take bites and then they spit it out just to get the taste.
Yeah.
And it's biting off more than you can chew. There's got to be a buildup. There's got to be a transition. And I tell people a lot of times, you're not sitting in front of me with cancer, stage 4, stage 5.
You have leverage.
You need to take a little bit of time to get you where you need to go so that you can figure out how you can accomplish this. I can't sit here and watch you and expect my journey to be identical to yours. It's just not going to happen. We're two different people. We're in 2 different environments. We have 2 different psyches. We've got 2 different belief systems, mind systems, whatever that may be. And all of that adds up to what you can accomplish. And sometimes people, they just try and do too much and it overwhelms them. And it takes them.
Guilty.
Yeah.
First time I heard of detoxification. Let's do a 14-day water fast.
Yeah.
What? Whoops. Absolutely. Are there anything, like branching off of that, are there any specific things that you say people do, or any advice for people that feel like, yes, this is all making sense? Because I know there are a lot of people that will be watching that have heard about Robert, or a lot of people that have been down the medical route and gone, this is obviously not working. It works to a degree. It creates the illusion of working, but my roots are growing bigger underneath. Are there any kind of nuance or trivial things or specific things that you could maybe shed light on, and just any wisdom that you have from Marcie in terms of detoxification?
Yes. Understand that your body needs to be loved into healing. You have to be patient with it. Your body is going to order or prioritize your healing according to its importance inside. So I might be thinking diabetes, And inside, my body's thinking, no, liver, 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 or heart, heart, heart. We got to go after this. And so I get frustrated after 6 months because I'm still battling this problem, but I am not seeing the internal healing that has taken place in all these other areas.
Yeah. Huge.
Did we pause again?
Yep, there we go. We're good.
Okay. So, I mean, just being patient with yourself and letting yourself know that it is a process. It does take time.
Yep.
You don't, I mean, even if I were to, I don't know how far away I am from you, what, 15,000 miles, maybe 8,
Yeah.
7, whatever it is.
15. Yep.
You know, I don't start out on an airplane and am there, you know, in an hour. It still takes about 20 some hours for me to fly to Australia. You know,
11,300. I just had to look it up for you.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So, you know, when you're looking at that, it's about a journey, and you have to be patient and love yourself through it. And
100%.
so many people, they get excited about this, and so they change all this stuff around them, and especially mothers. This is the worst, so I'm going to speak to mothers.
Thank you. Beautiful. Love that.
Convert everyone in the family or every one of their friends. I remember when I first started this and I went home and I was like, we're getting rid of the dairy, we're getting rid of the meat, we're getting rid of this. And I remember my husband looking at me, and my kids were young teenagers at the time. We were, I mean, literally a family that was meat for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and we were going through probably 7 gallons of milk a week. So the first thing, I remember my husband looking at me one time. I don't know if the kids had pulled him aside and had a talk with him or what, but he looked at me and he said, you do what you want to do, but you leave our meat and our dairy alone.
Yeah.
And I preached for a little while, and then I realized I was more pushing them away.
Yeah.
My husband at the time was 310 pounds.
Okay.
He has lost, he doesn't completely embrace this, but he has so much more. He's come so far, and he's lost probably 90 pounds. Beautiful. And kept it off, and is getting more and more into the, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
We've got to do this. We've got to change this. I mean, he just fasted this last week. I mean, to get him to fast 7-8 years ago.
Forget it.
Yeah.
That speaks to, again, the journey, I think, and allowing people to unfold in their own way, to wake up to their own journey, to see it, feel confident, feel ready, face their fears, everything. All the, again, the multifaceted things that allow people to say, maybe I can one day versus no, I can't. And then I will, and, you know, I can. That slow evolution of growing our comfort zone and growing our inner abilities. And I think that's, a beautiful thing is often I find in the space that it's like you're either on the protocol or you're not. It's either like a light switch. And I think people realize that there is a medium between. Find your balance, you know, and even Robert does say that. Find your balance. You want to eat meat, eat meat. You want to eat dairy, dairy, but just don't complain if you're in a lot of pain, and you want to eat foods that produce more pain. And just you have to do you and accept all responsibility and all consequences that come with that.
Some of the saddest stories are people who write to you and they're like, you know, I really wanted to set up an appointment with you, but I just can't do the diet right now. I've fallen off the wagon. And they don't realize that there's small steps that they can take. And so they take themselves completely out of that game, and they don't even have an appointment with you because they're ashamed that
they couldn't do it. Yeah. How would you begin the process of waking someone up to the lymphatic system, its connection to the vast majority of disease? I'm not going to say everyone, because, you know, you have nutrient deficiency, like beriberi and scurvy. They're not really lymphatically related to some degree. But how would you wake up someone to the idea that the lymphatic system is the missing link, that it's, you know, conveniently being left out of the medical model? I never once got a lymphatic test at a hospital, never even heard of it till I found Robert. And for the fact that it plays such a crucial role in immunology and the way our body functions in eliminating waste on all levels, what would be the first process that you would kind of get your clients to say, oh, yes, we have a garbage system? How obvious?
That that is either an aha moment for them, or and many have the aha moments. I've never really explained this to anyone where they said, you know what, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Most of them sit there and like, that makes total sense. The
Yeah.
problem is they get pulled back into thinking of symptomology. So
Yeah.
they understand what you're trying to say, but they leave. And then when they talk to you again, they're like, but my parasites or my viruses or this, that, or the other thing. And I'm like, no, no, no. You got to keep digging deeper. Why do you have the parasites? Why do you have the viruses? It is all about the environment. And when you have a lymphatic system that should be the consistency of a gel, like a watery snot, but it can thicken to almost paste, or it can even harden to the point of cement. You have to go in and break that up. That's not going to be a quick process. This isn't 10 days on a lemon fast breaks all that down.
No.
And, you know, most people, the biggest question I get is, why aren't I filtering yet? Filtering is huge.
It's like doing 2 bench presses and saying, why not Arnold Schwarzenegger yet?
Yeah. I mean, they get paranoid about it, and they don't understand that a lot of this hardened lymph has to be broken down. So when you're eating fruits and vegetables, they are 60 to 90% water. Now that water in there is actually not H2O, it's H3O2. And if you just drink a regular bottle of water, your body has to convert that from H2O to H3O2. And so when you're eating fruits and vegetables, remember that is the universal solvent. Water is.
Yeah.
And I'm talking hydration. I should say it more, hydration is the universal solvent. And when you're eating those fruits and vegetables, that starts breaking down or chipping away at that cement spot. And so when you urinate and you see and let that sit and you just see a fine mist, you have to remember everything that you say has a frequency, a vibration, and your body's listening. So when you say, I'm not filtering, I'm not filtering, I'm not filtering, your body's hearing that. You have to remember your cells are microscopic. You can't see them with the naked eye. So to see even a little flake in the urine that you can see with the naked eye is a huge chunk of cellular waste.
Yeah.
When you're seeing those big chunks, that's when you're getting into some of that deep hardened
cracking. Yeah. Yeah.
The other stuff that you see, the little fine mist and the sediment, you're still filtering. That's why you got to let it sit for a while so that it accumulates to the point that you can see it with the naked eye. And one of my biggest things is telling people, don't say you're not filtering. You may not be filtering optimally, but the fact that you're still here and not on dialysis tells me you're still filtering.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Oh, awesome. Let's thank you for that. Appreciate it.
And I'm sorry you're asking questions and probably want like answers like that. And
no, not at all. Not at all. This is perfect. Absolutely perfect. I want to bring in some more controversial stuff now, because I think that one thing that I've realized now is the tenacity of the body to heal when the conditions are right. In some cases, I feel, this is just personal opinion, can almost outweigh, to some degree, not light and switch on and off, but to some degree outweigh the food coming in. For instance, you saying, I'm not filtering, and people get locked into negative thinking, negative thoughts, high stress, and they're doing the high fruit. Now, I'll kind of tell another story, then I'll circumvent back to this. I've started to see hundreds, actually thousands now, thousands and thousands of stories of anecdotes of people, whether it was coming off a standard American diet, whether it was coming off a vegan diet, which, as you know, can mean anything. I mean, Skittles and Coca-Cola are vegan. Coming off any type of diet, and then they go carnivorous. And when I say carnivorous, I mean a nose to tail carnivore diet, not one fruit, not one vegetable, not one bit of fiber. And everything from fibromyalgia, well, medical thinking, as you know, to Crohn's, to multiple sclerosis I've seen, to depression, tons of things. Naturally, when you come from Robert's side to this side, it's like positive, negative poles, right? So when I see the healing within people, I can't discredit that. I can't say, you could have done better, you could have gone deep, you could have done this, when they're beaming with light and they've got their life back. And I think it speaks to, again, the tenacity of the body's ability to heal on a cellular level, not regardless of what food's coming in, but just, again, in this spiritual sense, this mental sense, this emotional sense. And if people feel like they have hope, if people feel like they have some kind of spiritual connection to healing and tap into that frequency, I think it speaks so much word. And everyone's trying to say, no, you got to do the fruit, you got to do the water fasting, you got to do the juice fasting, you got to do the carnivore, you got to do the vegan, you got to do this. I think when the individual finds within themselves that innate capacity to heal, that's when the magic truly starts happening. Like you were saying, when a woman especially, and this is not to sound sexist, but I agree, that they deserve and are worthy of healing, when they make that shift, whether it's the aha finally or just slow seeds being planted, that's when you see the healing, I think, take off a vast range. So coming back now, have you seen healing stories where people said, yeah, I did this and I did this and I feel like I'm in the perfect health? Is there that little party that says, well, you could go deeper and there's more cellular regeneration? Like, what do you make of that when you hear these kinds of stories?
I just realized that for them, they have reached a peak at that moment. They have, how do I want to say this? The first part of that question is we have to understand the body's innate ability to buffer acids and to buffer issues within the body. And so a perfect example is, I'm sure you heard of the whole flaxseed and cottage cheese to heal cancer.
Oh, I've never heard of that, but that sounds crazy.
Okay. Well,
But yeah, it goes about the buffering of capacity of all the lipids, right?
Exactly. Well, what is cottage cheese? Cottage cheese is mucus forming. What does mucus do? Mucus is there for a protectant. That's what all our mucosa membranes are for, is to protect us. It is the over mucus production that is the problem. But that cottage cheese mixed with the flax that is fat, lipids are also buffers. So both of those are approaching and toning down that inflammation. And you see that cancer starting to tone down. The problem is that's just a buffer. Eventually that acid's going to break through that and it become a bigger and bigger problem until it is mutated those cells. And now that cancer, it's not a matter of
Can't buffer it anymore. Yeah.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when I'll get that back.
Yeah. Well, like I was saying, I could just take one other extreme side. And then there's also the guy that, do you remember Robert talks about the guy that had the rotten meat to get his cancer? Well, he was in Ripley's, believe it or not, a Jonas Wonderplanet.
Yes.
And he was actually a raw foodist with meat. He said, you can have any food you want, just ensure it's raw. And he was also an iridologist. He was a healer. He ended up, again, he had multitudes of lymphomas, multitudes, I'm sure, of mutated cells, and went on a pure carnivorous diet of rotten meat.
Yes.
I think it was rotten fish as well, and cleared it up. And Robert was saying, the proteolytics that would come along and obviously do that. Do you think there's merit to some people if they couldn't? Because some people, I would just say, are addicted to meat, or some people just love the flavor of meat. It just might be in some cellular memory, it might be in some ancestral northern climate where over 10,000 years they've come down to this modern day. Do you feel like you have no issue with people doing it? Is it the case for you as to say whatever healing modality you want to find, you can find it? It's just that this is how you do it naturally.
I would agree with that, because eventually at some point, if that modality has limits, say they're all meat, for instance, which I believe has limits, they're going to eventually bump up against that. And then their decision is going to be, do I stay with this because it's worked so far, or is it no longer working for me and I'm starting to see things creep back in, and so now I have to look at something else and shift. Elevate that mindset just a little bit.
I would agree. I mean, I've seen all the anecdotes. I can't say, oh, your healing could have been done better. I'm so proud. Anyone that gets out of their suffering, anyone that gets out of their pain, I don't care if they eat glass and dog poo,
Yeah.
as long as it works for you. And then I agree. I think they hit plateaus. Like one person that I know quite close, he had IBS and couldn't digest any carbons naturally, would just ferment and bloat and da 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 da. And obviously, I would say to him, look, pancreatic, adrenals, there's the connection. It's telling you straight away you cannot digest sugars. And he went on a purely carnivorous diet, got amazing results. Now he feels like he has perfect digestion. Da, da, da. And I said, well, what happens when you want to enjoy a little treat and have a chocolate bar or a pizza or a wine? And it feels like it's so strict and limited. Whereas I feel like with detoxification, the way that I've done it, the way that Robert does it, it's like you're fixing the car to enjoy a burnout once in a while. It's like you're fixing the hardware to enjoy
Oh,
it.
you're
No one's living.
speaking my language.
No one's living forever. So this idea of being a purist, it doesn't sit for me personally. Some people want to live that way. It just doesn't sit with me. That's just my personal thing. So when I say to people, this was your healing modality, how's it working out for you to be able to return to your version of balance? Because it just seems quite restrictive that you're going to eat meat for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You're not going to enjoy,
One of the reasons I'm going to give you my little take on why the meat, especially the raw meat, works so well. If we understand everything that is broken down within the body, that is an enzymatic process.
Yeah.
When you cook something, you destroy the majority of those enzymes. So even in raw meat, the enzymes are still life-giving.
Yeah. And I would even say, even when cooked, you're only cooking the outside. I mean, if you do a medium or a rare, most of it's still just warm. That's why it's so bloody. It's just there.
They say, what is it, under 115 or 100 and I think it's 115 degrees, it's still considered raw.
Yeah.
Because you've got killed most of the stuff off. But you got to look at the fact that when you're eating a raw diet,
enzyme rich.
It's doing your battles for you. It's fighting that for you. It's breaking things down in a lot, so you don't have to do as much work. Your pancreas gets a little bit of a break. Your liver gets a little bit of a break. When you're eating cooked food, you think about it. You eat breakfast, bacon and eggs. That can take your body anywhere from 10 to 15 hours to 20 hours to break down. You eat lunch. Let's say you grab a chicken sandwich at McDonald's or wherever. I don't even know if McDonald's has a chicken sandwich, but if they have a chicken sandwich, you consume that. That's another, 15 to 20 hours. You haven't even finished digesting breakfast. Now you got lunch. Your dinner
Marcie,
is...
sorry, I've got to interrupt. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to cut the two things. I just got someone at the door. There's just a post office. I'll get it real quick and I'll cut this out. 2 secs.
Sounds good.
Coming.
How you doing, babe?
Alrighty. My apologies. I knew the post office was coming today.
No problem.
Where were we?
Where were we?
We were at the point of talking about
the enzymes and that kind of thing. That's, the benefit of raw just can't, you can't beat it.
Do you think there's this was so funny how these have actually literally, it's almost like I knew this was happening the way it was going to happen. My questions have just come next to next to next. Are there times you move away from raw when, again, emotionally speaking, people are like, I need to be confident. I can't handle the up. I need some fish. I need some eggs. I need some meat. How do you approach that in terms of someone that says, I need a piece of steak, I need something to ground me?
The first thing that I would say, and I'm not the best at following my own orders, but take a moment, take 10 minutes and focus on something else.
Mm.
Just completely get that thought out of your mind and focus on something else. Because we don't realize that a lot of times the organisms within us, and I don't want to make this sound spooky to somebody, but it's a living organism. I have
Yep.
had numerous people that are craving this, that, and the other thing, and it was actually the parasites that were craving it and not them. I had one lady, I forget what it was she was craving, but she said, I cannot stand this food. Why am I craving it?
Mm.
I think it was both.
I had the same thing. I sometimes 2 months in, and people say, I said, oh, how are your eating habits now in terms of all the previous food? They said, I don't even crave it anymore. So from probably neurology changing to gut microbiome changes to parasite elimination to fluke work, like whatever it could be. And it's especially with the sugars too, in terms of like highly refined and concentrated. I find a lot of starch eaters, sugary drinkers, that kind of thing. And that's sometimes the hardest thing, is to switch people from going, no, sugar was the problem in terms of refined, your high fructose corn syrups in large amounts. And all these other things. We want you to put you on a proper sugar diet, which has a fiber matrix, electrolytes, antioxidants, enzymes, and mostly raw. Do you advocate at some points, if someone's really frail, do you advocate getting their calories up through lipids and perhaps meats, or like how would you go about that? Would you just say have more of this, or would you actually say, like, you know what, you could actually do with a piece of fish? There's calcium, there is omega-3s, and it's really going to perhaps help ground you and give you some nutrients and buffer the calories up. Because I mean, detoxification is a stress, as you know. Restricting calories is a stress. So how do you find you go about when pushing and pulling, I guess, people? Because I think, again, that's a big mistake. People just push, and don't come back. How would you normally go about feeding people back up and pulling them back up?
Two stories actually come to mind, and I'll share those. But the first thing that I want to share is the way I approach detoxification is I like to help people build in regular breaks. First of all, our bodies, we are detoxing to get our bodies back into the reminder or the condition of it just detoxing on its own.
Mm.
We were never meant to be so focused on food. You know, food, this processed, to some people, food becomes a god to them then.
Oh, yeah.
Always focused on it.
Like a religion.
What can't I have? Exactly. And so trying not to get pulled into that so much.
Just interrupt, cut off, because that's what I see a lot. I mean, there is cultish behavior in every food religion I've seen. There are cultist carnivores, cultist fruitarianism, cultist vegans. It becomes an absolute identity for them. And I feel like they either get locked to it because they haven't met themselves yet and it gives them some kind of purpose, or it's just something easy to attach to because food is so innately bound to our beings, if we choose it to be, you know?
Well, let's get together for football Friday night. I'll bring snacks.
Yep.
Let's get together for a quilting bee on Saturday, and I'll bring
4th of July. Let's bring the turkey.
let's go out to lunch after church. You know, it's just everything we do is based. We have made that our relationship center. If I don't have anything in common with you, I can at least enjoy a meal with you.
Yeah.
Type of thing. One story that comes to mind is I was working with a young lady. She had been on a lemon fast for almost a year. She was down to she would do occasional fruits, but without fail, constant lemons
Lemons eating or lemon juice?
The lemon juice.
How are her teeth?
Probably not the best. She didn't. She had so many other issues. We didn't really even get to the teeth part.
So she was chronically
down,
sick.
Yes, and she was down to 47 pounds, I think it was.
Jesus.
She was in bed, couldn't even get out of bed, couldn't walk on her own. And I pulled her out of that thought process of, I got to continue this. And I said, we are going to take 2 months and we are going to do a building program. The thought of even adding a vegetable into her diet was beyond her. So I said, we're going to do this all fruit. But I gave her recipes, I gave her ideas, I gave her smoothie ideas and things to add to that smoothie. The first month, I think she gained 11 pounds. The second month, I think it was 8. But she was walking, she was getting out of bed again, she was going to the grocery store. It was enough to pull her. Her detoxing actually put her in that bed to some extent.
Yeah, that's what I mean. People just overdo it and they go crazy.
Yeah.
And I can understand, I guess, that point of view. It's like when you feel like, no, I've got to do it, and nothing gets in the way until the pain of realizing where you've come, going, oh shit, maybe this isn't the right thing, and then you start questioning yourself. I can completely resonate and understand. It's just, yeah, this is why I think the communication lines of the future of detoxification need to be really, really clear in a way that the people can interpret and not fear, not get locked in, not overdo it, learn how to balance, push, pull. Because otherwise, yeah, you can get into a mess. I mean, I just had a guy that said, oh, doing fruitarianism ruined my life. I did an 86-day juice fast. And I said, you ruined your life. It wasn't fruitarianism. You ruined your life. You did an 86-day juice fast. I thought, what were you thinking? But he must not have been thinking. He was just, he was locked. So he's now saying, oh, animal fat saved my life and meat saved my life. And I can just see the switch again. It's just going from one pole to the other. So, but again, so come back to specifically, just to seeing someone who's been on the side of Robert, because I know I've seen a couple of his videos too, and I spoke with him on an interview a couple of times, and I don't feel he has an issue when you're trying to break. If you want a piece of meat, go have it. He said, I've used it, anemics especially, say just go eat some liver, it'll definitely bump your levels up and give you extra protein if at that point it might be beneficial, or lipids. So do you break from raw? Do you break from into cooked or to meat, fish, eggs?
Yeah. I crave eggs, but I've done a lot of research on eggs, and they're not the wonderful little nugget that everybody thinks they are. So I've kind of pulled back from that. Mashed potatoes used to be one of my all-time weaknesses, and I have learned little tricks to pull myself out of that one. Not all the time, but I'm trying to think. I just had a cooked meal today. I took mushrooms and lightly sauteed them with some red peppers and onions.
Would you ever do animal products for clients if they were like really, say, deficient, or they were too locked, they were pushing too hard? Would you ease them back and to say like, hey, go have a piece of salmon?
The other story I was going to share was a lady that was a lot of issues, and she called me one day just screaming at me. You don't care for me. You don't love me. This isn't working for me. And the first thing I attempted to do was pull her back with some raw vegetables, and that didn't work. So we went to cooked steamed vegetables. That didn't work. So I told her, I said, I want you to take 2 days a week and I want you to have some fish. That worked and grounded her enough that she could get through the release that she was going through emotionally, and ground herself enough that she could then calm down and get back to reality, sanity, whatever you want to call it at that moment, and could handle where she was and the interaction with me at that point.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think look, for some viewers as well, they're not even going to know who Robert is as well. We kind of maybe have two. And can we just quickly maybe crack on the modality of healing from pretty much any disease, as I'm sure you would say? Let's just use cancer. It's a really, really hot topic always. It has a lot of emotional input for a lot of people. My father, my uncle died of cancer.
Sorry to hear that.
Well, look, I'm brushing with my own contact with death. I mean, it's part of it's a healthy natural part. Since the day they've died, there's been nothing but elation and joy for them. There's no grief. I've very easily be able to release that. It's a beautiful thing and a beautiful place to be in. But for people that, I guess, again, I just had a friend who said just got diagnosed. She was a healthy lady, found a little lump on the breast. They just put her through chemo radiation. Within 2 weeks, her hair's out. She's jaundiced. She looks like a death. Do you sit like Robert does and just go, this shit is crazy? And can you also, so just, I guess, your quick opinion on that and just the current modality of the medical model and just what you have also achieved. Let's go strictly on cancer, what you've been able to achieve, just you as a clinician, what you've been able to achieve with your patients, any type of cancers. Take the mic, go for it.
Well, first of all, cancer is, we've put this fear into people about what cancer is. Cancer is just a cell that's been damaged and it's mutated. It's like a virus that shows up on your computer and takes over your programs. So when you look at chemo and to some extent radiation as well, that destroys the cell. It does. It's hot enough that it's going to kill off that cancer cell. The problem is it's hot enough that it's destroying the cells around it. So your doctor may come back to you and say, oh, you're in remission. Fantastic. The problem is they killed off the cells, but they never cleaned the highway that gets rid of all that damage. And then you created all this damage with the chemo and the radiation. So you just flooded this highway that's already backed up with even more. And it's those cells that have been damaged are eventually in that hot environment going to turn cancerous and mutate. So your doctor, it's not a matter of when. It could be 6 months down the road. It could be 2 years down the road. It could be 10 years down the road. Oh, I'm sorry, your cancer's back. Because you never fixed the elimination process. You never fixed the highway, the freeway.
What are some of the best stories? Some even the quicker. I like hearing rapid healing stories. I think sometimes when people think, oh, you mean I've got to change my lifestyle? It's like, yeah, otherwise you're dead. But for some people, again, there's that blockage of you have to severely change your lifestyle and fix your problems, which means facing off with yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And can you give me some rapid stories of how quickly you were able to clean up either a breast tumor or a leukemia case or some of the harder ones, but just how, and just maybe how many cases you've seen time and time again that you've educated, empowered, and cleared the cancer. It's been reversed. I don't like the word cure because it implies fairy dust. You've fixed the problem and they've now achieved homeostasis. They're living with healthy cells.
Okay, so I was working with one lady. We were going back and forth with her cancer and just wasn't getting kind of the results that we wanted. And we talked about her doing going somewhere to get out of her environment and doing an extended fast. I didn't care what kind of fast. I recommended a coconut water fast. I love coconut water because it has the electrolytes in it that can help stabilize you and get you, you're still hydrating, you're still supplying a little bit, but it's mostly water. You're not digesting near as much. You're putting all that energy into healing rather than digesting. And she chose, I don't even remember what retreat center she went to, but for 40 days, she did coconuts right off the tree, open them, drink them. And when she got home, her doctor said, who did your surgery? And she said, what do you mean? And he said, all 9 of your tumors are gone. I mean, the stories like that. Now, this woman, it wasn't just the coconut water. She went with faith.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, doubt is acidic, faith is alkaline. You have to have faith in what you're doing. These people that are out there switching to carnivore and different modalities, are they putting their faith in it? Is that why it's working for them? Because they believe in it?
That's what I was saying. If you, the belief, I think, is huge. This is working. Okay, I will.
It is.
Your body will
Now,
find a way.
can you eat Twinkies all day long and reverse all your issues?
Probably not.
Yeah.
It was funny. I read a study of a professor, just real quick. I'll get back to the cancer story. I read a study once of a professor that wanted to show that just reducing calories out of homeostasis to invoke detoxification, to invoke weight loss, to invoke all these things. He has something like 10 to 15 markers. It was BP, blood sugars. I think it was even some cytokines like interleukin 6 and TNF alpha and CRP, ESRs. There was all these biomarkers he did, and every single one of them actually improved. He lost about, I think it was 2 months. He did it for 8 weeks. He was just junk food diet. I couldn't believe my eyes. And because he didn't believe it himself. He wanted to do the experiment. If I lose weight, is the loss of weight, the toxic fat and everything else, is that enough for my body to clear that out and improve my health? Now, would I suggest that to anyone? No. But again, I think it speaks merit to the tenacity of the body when you give it the right conditions to some degree, where it can finally push through channels, it can finally eliminate, it can finally do its job of healing and regenerating at a rate faster than degeneration.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna see magic. So again, that speaks light.
Take type 2 diabetes, for instance. The majority of your type 2 diabetics, I'm not saying across the board, but the majority of them are overweight. And if they start losing and dropping weight, they can get off their medication. Okay, let's look at why that is. Well, first of all that excess fat is restricting lymphatic flow. It is restricting the processes within the body. And especially when that lymph gets restricted around the adrenals, that's sugar
suffocating. Yeah.
It's suffocating it.
I think people don't realize.
Go ahead.
Oh, so I don't think people realize too that fat cells are they're cell. They are living. They are connected to the venous and lymphatic systems. I think sometimes people think it's just a coat, it's a dead layer, and they don't realize it's live tissue. So if that's now visceral as well, not just intracellular and extracellular, it's around organs and endocrine glands. It's thick, it's fatty, it's a really thick substance. So you're restricting all types of flow. And again, it speaks, if people just exercised and went on some type of diet, and I don't like the word diet because it has dye in it, but some type of nutritional eating plan conducive to losing weight in a steady, healthy way, most diabetics would reverse their diabetes. And again, it's crazy how we get locked into the allopathic model of, oh, you got diabetes now, you're broken, you're on insulin, and here's your subscription to life of an insulin pen or metformin or whatever it is. But I just wanted to bring that to light because I think sometimes, again, people get locked into there's only one way or there's no way. And I don't think that's true. I think we're finding many ways. I think there are definitely better ways. Like you said, you hit ceilings and you hit plateaus. And I certainly know when I did 100% fruit and I was fasting and I was doing heavy in my thing and then I was kind of slowly rebuilding, I had so much energy, I didn't like it. I had too much energy to go to my friends. I was just always, whoa, let's do something. It was just non-stop. I felt like this vibrating energetic machine. I like sometimes being grounded. I'm an old soul, so I like just chilling out and laying down. I don't like sitting down and going, I got energy, let's go to the gym, so it speaks word, I think, to, again, anytime someone says I am worthy of healing, I don't care what you do, find your healing, find your fixes, find the answers to your problems. They're out there beyond probably what you're already doing if you're suffering, if you're a dog chasing its own tail. But back to the cancer stories, please continue. Would love to hear more.
I'm going to tell a sad one. And I want to lead into it because, there's lots of stories out there. I'm working with a lady with breast cancer right now where, she is seeing that get smaller and smaller and change density and change sizes. And it may not have completely left yet, but she has got hope in the fact.
Hope, yeah.
Yes. And it goes back to that hope. But I had one of the very first cases when I was at Robert's office. I had a couple come into my office, and he had been diagnosed with cancer. I was only working with him for probably about 2 months, and his cancer markers were coming down. His energy was going up. He was having some excellent results with one problem. The last time they sat in my office, they had just come from the doctor's office, and the doctor looked at him and said, "You have 3 weeks to live."
Oh.
I looked at him and I said, You don't believe that. First of all, no human being has a right to tell you how long you have to live. None. I don't care what their experience is, because they don't know your background. They don't know your hope. They don't know your belief. They don't know your support system. They don't know any of that. And all of that plays a factor in someone's healing. And the problem is, I told him not to embrace that, but he did. He got scared and he lost the hope that he was feeling it. He was feeling the changes. He was seeing it visually, but he got drawn into that fear, and literally within several weeks he was gone.
This is the story of my father. So early this year in March, dad was not living a life conducive to health. He was 77. So definitely not the picture of health, very sedentary and overweight and type 2 diabetic, had, I think, double bypass or triple bypass, had something, but had a heart attack. This is all very young, and that's why it's quite vague. But cut a long story short, when he got the diagnosis, he had a bone biopsy from his hip. They said it's, something like 60 to 70% cancerous. You've got weeks to live. At one point it was 1 week, then it was 6 weeks. They were always chopping and changing. And that's, again, speaking lied to. Who are you to say, yes, perhaps based on experience, but you can't say that. You say, look, it could be looking glim for you. We're not going to give you false hope. But I think the reality is, like you said, when you appeal to authority and someone says it's like that energy of this is going to happen to you just completely penetrates someone who is in so much fear, so vulnerable to receive all types of energy and isn't strong within themselves. He got that. And I just said to him, I remember I looked at my father and I just said, Dad, if you want to fly to Vegas right now and I'll go get some strippers and cocaine, I'm all for it. I will support you any way you want. However, equally so, if you want to get out of this hot mess, it's not going to be a short journey. This will be one of probably years of recovery, but we'll get you out of hot water. And he said, I'll eat anything. I'll do anything you say. He said, so he had that hope there. Anyway, cut a really long story short. I asked the nurses can I please get it on a blood test? I actually talked to the hematologist and I say, can I please get a blood test with specific markers that I can see just for my own? I just kind of downplayed it. Sometimes they don't like kicking up a fuss. Right. Doctors are a bit funny like that. Anyway, cut a long story short here, his leukemia was white cell going up, right? One of the easiest, as I'm sure Bob would say the same thing, one of the easiest to fix. He was obviously more brittle, 77, But the rate of his white blood cell count it was still going up, but it was big jumps, smaller jump, smaller jump, smaller jump, smaller jump, smaller jump, to the point it was evened out. His C-reactive protein was something like 200 and something, down by 70 points every week, to the point it was like 22, up from hundreds. And then there was one day, I don't know whether it was the hematologist, someone he spoke to, something, the exact same thing happened. He just says, I can't do this anymore. He had more energy. We started going down for walks on the beach. I was putting him in water, getting sunshine. All these things were starting to happen. And I think you're right. People either hit a point where within themselves they don't believe it, or they have the outside influence that says you can't do it. And it broke him. Anyway, he started drinking back milks again. He goes, Mitch, you were right. I've had nothing but mucus come out. I'm drinking milks and it's all happening. He wanted to eat anything he wanted to, just to comfort. I said, Dad, I love you all the same. It's your time to go. It's your time to go. So that speaks a lot. I think those people, and you, I'm sure at the clinic, receive so many critical people. It's not just, I have a pain in my elbow, I need to go on a detox, right? It's, I am chronic. I have lumps. I have pain. I am jaundice. I am this. There are serious, serious problems. And most of these people, please jump out at me if I'm wrong on this, have already been down 5, 10, 20 years of pills, radiation, chemo, injections, this, that, stress, all kinds of toxicity. That's a very nebulous term, but I'll use it. So they're already at critical points. And again, it just goes to show what a beautiful role I think that you do. And I'd love to just even commend you at this moment and everyone that reaches out and really puts their heart and soul into this, because we have a very sick world. As you know, America, when I look at the stats, holy bejesus. 2/3 now pre or diabetic, over half chronically obese or overweight, 1/3 of children overweight or obese. There are just some frightening statistics.
Absolutely.
And when you look at the biggest killers, that can actually be easily reversed, but we just put trillions on running for breast cancer and running for prostate cancer and this type of thing. And burgers, I saw burgers for MS the other day. Shit, burgers for MS.
Yeah. And you
crazy.
Is it Burger King or McDonald's, somebody's got this Impossible Burger, or it's supposed to be
Beyond Meat or something as well. Yeah.
You actually look at the components. They're trying to as the healthier option.
I tell people straight, I said, please go eat the steak. Do not even dare touch that crap, that fake meat. The ingredients list this long. Oh, there's health within, at least there's nutrition. There's everything from Mother Nature. It's still from Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Depending how you look at it. I said, Impossible Burger, crap, my goodness.
Yeah.
Really quickly back. Sorry, you go.
I had a situation one time. I just want to share this. I got bit by a brown recluse spider, and they were thinking that I would lose the toe. And I had a doctor come into my office. Now, the doctor wasn't there to see me about the toe. She was there to see me about my diabetes and my vascular situation and that kind of thing. And she was just talking away, and all of a sudden she looked at me and she said, "You're going to lose that toe. You know that. There's no coming back from this." I allowed that to destroy me for about 36 hours. It took my faith in myself as a healer. I started questioning myself. What am I doing? What do I do next? All this stuff. She come in 2 days later, and I had pulled myself up by the bootstraps, so to speak, and I looked at her and I said, "I need to talk to you about something." I said, "You may be an expert in your field, but I said, I'm an expert in mine." I said, "You may have seen a lot of things, but so have I." And I said, "For the last 8 years, I have been studying the power of the spoken word on our physical beings." And I said, "First of all, you had no authority and no
Quick pause.
going through, because you don't know that."
Yeah.
And I said, "So from now on, when you talk to me, it will be in a belief. How do we get to a solution?
Yeah.
Not the downside." Well, I don't want to offer someone false hope. And I looked at her and I told her, I said, "I don't believe in false hope. If you can give somebody hope for one more day, who cares?
Yep.
You've given them hope for one more day. There's no such thing as false hope. You steal that hope from somebody and you have something to answer for."
Yeah, I saw that when I coached gymnastics and the young mind of a child. And when you would see, this is not a rag on anyone, but when you would see coaches that might have been dealing a lot with themselves that would project, and the way it can infiltrate a soul is immense. Someone's spirit, psyche, all of it, whatever angle you want to take from it, from an intellectual level to a spiritual level. Because on an intellectual level, we'd know that there'd probably be a rise in cortisol, there'd be a rise in epinephrine, there'd be a rise in all these hormones not conducive to feeling good and healing and regenerating. So I completely agree. I think hope is a beautiful thing.
Every emotion has a frequency, and those frequencies actually tell the hypothalamus regulates that. So if you're having a negative thought or a negative experience, the hypothalamus releases this hormone. If you're having a positive one, it releases this hormone. And those help balance or take you out of balance, depending.
Yeah. I know we're going a bit of a tangent, but just coming back to cancer cases. How just off the top of your list, how many would you say from start, I have cancer, stage 1, stage 2, stage 10, doesn't matter, at any location, to full healing? How many clients would you say you've taken through a healing protocol and have come out at the other end?
Oh my goodness. I mean, over the course of 8 years, that's
so rough, yeah.
Come
on, take a stab.
I mean, hundreds maybe. I mean, it's not a huge, because not everybody's coming to you with cancer.
Of course.
And then you've got to balance that it does take a while to pull a person out of cancer sometimes, because you have taken a cell. These bodies are meant for survival, and it will do whatever it can. So by the time you have established you have cancer, your body's through a lot.
Decades and decades of damage, yeah.
And
or
you
genetics to babies, of course.
exactly, and you've got to reverse that. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's a lot of people, they give up on the journey before they reach their goal,
Absolutely.
because they come in thinking 3 months, I'm going to do this for 3 months and all is going to be golden. And 3 months comes and it doesn't. And well, I got to do something else. This isn't working.
Yeah.
And so when you factor in that, I mean, there are literally hundreds of thousands of cases out there of people that have healed themselves with a raw diet, with cancer,
Yeah.
with heart disease, with, you name it.
Anything. Yeah.
You
And
name it.
I think the next, you're going to see 2020 to 2030, this veil almost, I think, being lifted, whether it's out of complete ignorance of pharmaceutical medicine, where they've just taken they've become overly power of, yeah, we're great in emergency, therefore we're great in treating disease, which, as you know, is crap. And again, I want to keep everything in context. I'm not telling everyone, when people watch this, I think we have to be really diligent with our words, because some people are vulnerable. They'll say, oh, well, I can go on a raw diet and check my insulin pen in the bin. That's not what we're saying at all. However, I think the consciousness of health is, I mean, I almost feel like I see it from afar now, is just, we can no longer do these things, but it requires personal responsibility. That's the gap.
Yeah.
Doctors are frustrated. Many people are frustrated with this idea of, I have to take a pill for the rest of my life. And doctors, I'm sure, see their patients not getting better. That's crazy. We have to change this. So
Yeah.
you're doing a beautiful thing. Marcie, we've just hit an hour and 20. I could talk to you all day. I know it's night time for you, so please go have a beautiful night. Thank you so much. I would love to do this again at some point, but I know you're busy, so whenever the stars align. Any
Absolutely.
final words for anyone?
Just remember to love yourself well.
Yeah.
I've already come up, this is going to be bad. My husband helped me come up with a theme song.
Show us.
We're going to steal AC/DC's Highway to Hell, and we're going to call it Highway to Well.
I do well. I love it. Love it. Thank you so much again, gorgeous. I appreciate it. Appreciate you. Mwah. Be well.
Thanks, Mitch. Have a
See
great
ya. Bye.
day yourself.
Yes, see ya.
Bye-bye.